Okay, so today we're going to go over how to make more money in real estate. How do you maximize the amount of dollars that you get when you're selling real estate? Real estate is an efficiency game. So you could be working for 6 months with a buyer or a seller and invest a lot of time with that person and not close a deal and walk away with $0. Or you could literally work a few hours with a buyer or a seller and earn a commission for 30, 50, $100,000, and your dollars per hours are completely insane. So obviously, the more you work with the people that you get paid and get your good income, the higher your average income per hour invested. And there's two factors when determining who to work with. First, is it a buyer or a seller, and their level of motivation. Level of motivation is by far what is going to determine whether you get paid. If you work with a seller that says, I'll sell if I get my price, or has a lot of conditions, it's very likely you're going to be working a lot and potentially not closing that deal. But if you're working with a seller, I'm leaving the country, I need to sell the home, your likelihood of getting paid is very high. And same thing with buyers. You can be working with a buyer that says, I'll only buy if I find the perfect thing at a 30% discount and has all these conditions. Or, hey, I'm moving to the area, this is my budget, I have to buy something. So motivation should be your number one factor. But that being said, you know the level of motivation of a seller when you take the listing. You know how much the listing is worth, and you know the range that they're in. Some sellers want double the price. That's not a seller that's motivated to sell. And when you take a listing, you're going to sell 95% of your listings if you do it properly. When you're working with buyers, there's a lot more conditions that can happen, because sometimes the buyer could be motivated and everything's fine, but suddenly the financing doesn't work, or a million other things could happen. So you're going to be closing a small percentage, maybe 30, 40% of all the buyers that you work with, but you're going to be closing 90 to 95% of the listings that you're working with. And so just by that, if you're spending the same amount of time prospecting for buyers versus sellers, you're making double the income if you're working with sellers, simply because you're going to get much more of them closing if you're educating them properly and working with the right sellers. Real estate is a database business. So a lot of you basically have to get a hold of people. Every single person is a potential real estate lead. If they're renting, then you have a renting lead, plus they're likely to buy someday, and then you can help them. And if they own, then they're automatically a selling lead. On average around the country, people sell every 7 years. But if you round it to people selling every 10 years, here in the market that I am in, you have like 15, 16 years in some areas. It doesn't matter. Let's just, for easy math, let's say people are selling every 10 years. If you have 1,000 people in your database, that means that about 100 people that you know in contact and are trying to gain top of mind are selling every year. So now you have a lot of people to have access to close a lot of business. And that's where the database comes in. As you're prospecting and you're contacting people, you add them to a database of either a buyer or a seller, and you keep in touch. And over time, that database is going to start producing income by itself. In terms of niches, people focus on a lot of different things, whether it's expireds, divorces, estate, particular necessities. I think the best niche is area dominance. By area dominance, you're going to have a better lifestyle because all of your business is within a particular area. You're going to be more knowledgeable about that area than other people, which is going to help you both with buyers and sellers. And just generally speaking, it's a better lifestyle and makes it easier for you to close business, because when you have a buyer for an area, it makes it easier to take listings there. And when you have listings in an area, it makes it easier for you to get buyers in that area. Whenever you're working in real estate, you're going to have to be investing some time and some money in doing things. When you don't have a lot of money, there's very cheap things that you can do. But even if you're just calling, you have to spend money with a cell phone bill. When you're first starting, you should not be advertising. And here's why. If somebody closes 1 out of every 10 leads and somebody else closes 3 out of every 10 leads, the one that closes at 3 out of every 10 is going to be able to spend a lot more money on leads than the one that closes 1 out of every 10. And potentially the one that closes 1 out of every 10 might not be even breaking even. He might be spending more money advertising than he's actually converting. So the first thing is you need to be able to be generating business. Plus, if you're not making money, then you probably have a lot of time. Otherwise, you'd be working with your sellers and buyers. And if you have a lot of time, then why spend the money advertising when you could be spending time honing your skills and becoming more and more efficient as time grows. Now, once you're being able to close a lot of business by through your skills, then now you could throw some money behind it and you're going to make yourself even more efficient because now you don't need to spend as much time prospecting because the advertising is doing that for you. So there's different places in which you could be investing your prospecting time. You could be calling, door knocking, creating content, videos, social media posts, and so forth. Going to networking events, open houses, and center a sphere of influence conversations, people that you know. Each one of them has their pros and cons, and so let's go over them. Who to call? When you're calling your sphere of influence, the people that know and trust you, they're one of the best leads that you can get, but you have typically a limited amount of people. How many people do you actually know that are actually doing business now and that are ready to get you earning money? Most of the time, not that many, but that's the first thing you should do is get the sphere of influence and segment that into your database. Are they a buyer or a seller? And start and add them to your database. Expireds. Expireds are people that tried selling, they failed. The moment they failed, they have a gazillion agents calling them. And when these agents call, it's very hard to get to the top. That's how I started my business. If you're able to do expireds, you're going to really hone in your skills. If your goal is to get better at the skills of closing, expireds are one of the best. But they're harder, actually, because every single person that you talk to, they've been called by 100 other agents. So you have to be the best out of 100 to be actually doing business with that person. And they're a little burnt out, but it's a fantastic form of business because it's a person that wants to sell right now. Cold calling, I think, is the best combination of things because you have an unlimited amount of people to call. You're going to get less people that are motivated to close right now, but they're so much more open to your call. Most people are fine with you calling. You can add them to your database and start building a relationship with them. And at the same time, you're getting now business. And we're going to go over that in more detail as we progress. Why calling is the foundation. It requires no money. You just get your CRM, you buy your leads, and now you have pretty much an unlimited amount of people that you can be calling. You're going to be adding to your database 2 to 3, sometimes 4 people an hour that are people that you will be doing business in the future, or you have a high probability of doing. And it's fun. You're going to make friends. You're going to be talking to nice people every day. You're also going to have a few that, are not going to be happy, and you take them off your database and you never call them again. But it's not like calling really high resistant leads like expired. You just keep calling, you start getting to know people, you start building your database, you see who you weed out of your database, and over time, you're going to have more and more friendlier and friendlier calls. Now, in today's world, a lot of people don't pick up their phones, so it's very important to augment your calling with texting and emailing and content creation. If you have good video and good content, now you have something digital to email and text. And that really enhances things. There's some people that I called and they were, not very receptive. Then I sent them a text with really good content and they're like, wow, I haven't seen anything like this. And suddenly I have a very good connection and I totally differentiated myself from other realtors in the area. I more than doubled my total production just by adding the automated texting. So every time I call, the system texts them and then emails them. And that's doubled the amount of people that actually respond to doing business with me. Buying leverage. So a lot of people then want to spend money trying to get leads. There's different approaches to this. A lot of people are going to buy Google pay-per-click or Facebook pay-per-click where you're spending $5 to $15 per lead. I think this is a terrible mistake. These leads are very low interest leads. They're not people that are calling you or interested in you calling them to do business with you. And you're going to have to call through 100 people to find 1 or 2 potential clients. You're much better off cold calling than buying these leads. They're not worth very much. On the other hand, you can have more expensive high interest leads. When you put an ad just saying, hey, you should be working with me, you expose it to a lot of people, and then people are inbound calling you or asking you to call them, where they're already interested in doing business with you. So now you're calling 2 or 3 people to actually get a deal, as opposed to calling through 100 to get a deal. And that's a better use of your money and your time. So the general long-term engine is you're going to be calling people. This will generate some now business, but most of them is just building your database. You're going to be creating content, and you're going to be sharing this content to your database. On top of that, you can creating ads, which also adds to the database as you remarket to those people. That generates listings. The listings generate more listings and buyers. And the business just becomes easier and easier over time. Because now when you're managing this database, you start creating more and more relationship with the database, and it just starts generating business without you needing to really, prospect like crazy like you did in the beginning. So how do you measure the dollars per hour that it's taking you, or that you're making? First, you're going to track how many hours of prospecting does it take you to generate a listing presentation. And this is fairly simple. You go through the dialer, and at the end of the week, you're like, okay, I spent 10 hours dialing or 20 hours dialing or whatever amount of time. How many listing presentations did I get? And you just track that over time. Eventually, you're going to come to the realization that you say, okay, for every X, let's say 20 hours on the phone, I get 1 listing presentation. And then once you take a listing, you're also going to calculate how many hours does it take me to sell that listing. In the beginning, you're going to do everything yourself, but you can leverage with the other people by hiring people once you start getting a lot of business. But let's say it takes you 20 hours to sell a listing. When you start working with a difficult person that you're going to say, look, this is going to take hundreds of hours to sell, if I even sell, you're like, why am I going to work with this person? I'll just spend 20 hours on the phone, and I'll get another much better high quality listing. So you track the hours to a listing presentation. Once you take a listing, you track how many hours it takes you to actually get paid. And now you can track what percentage of listing presentations are closing. And now you have a specific ROI. You see exactly the amount of hours that it took you, and you divide it by your commission, your average commission, and now you have $1 per hour. So if you have no listings, all that you should be doing all day, every day, is just calling on the phone and reaching 6 to 7 contacts an hour. As you're taking listings, you will then be reducing the amount of calls you make, because you're going to be servicing these listings. One of the mistakes people make is once they're selling, they're taking a lot of listings and selling, is they stop prospecting. Then all these listings sell, and now they have to start prospecting again, and it takes a while for the ball to get rolling again. As you're managing and creating a relationship with your database, you're going to not need to prospect as much to get a lot of business out of it, because the sellers are people that are going to be having you top of mind as their realtor. In closing, focus on listings. Build and nurture a database in which you're going to be calling, texting, emailing, direct mailing, sending digital content, all these kinds of things, and you're really going to hone in so that this database is generating business for you. Calling is the foundation of everything. And then as you master calling, you're going to have to master your listing presentation, and you're also going to have to master your buyer's presentation. And then all of this goes in conjunction with your content creation, and then you're going to have a system to put all of this in place to generate business on a regular basis. I hope this helps. We're going to get more details on the specifics on how to do each one of these. And if you have any questions, just go join our Deal-a-Month Realtors Community in a school. And for $100 a month, you get all of this instruction, and you're going to be making tens of thousands of dollars a month from it. Hope to see you there.